0600 hours. The Irish Sea, 20 miles east of the Isle of Man. A thick, freezing fog hangs low over the water, blending the gray ocean with the steel sky. Large swells roll beneath the hull of the lead American destroyer, causing the vessel to pitch rhythmically into the trough of the waves. On the deck of the following transport ship, heavy canvas tarps glisten with sea spray, concealing rows of vehicles strapped to the flight deck. The wind howls through the superstructure, carrying the stinging scent of salt and diesel. The convoy moves in a blackout state, lights extinguished, cutting through the gloom like a phantom fleet. The silence inside the destroyer's combat information center breaks instantly. A radar operator stiffens in his chair. 8 distinct contacts materialize on the perimeter of the green display. They are small, fast, and inbound from the east. The operator shouts the bearing. The tactical officer does not hesitate. He punches the red button on his console. The general quarters alarm screams through the ship. The sound tears through the corridors, vibrating against the bulkheads. Below decks, sailors are thrown into motion. They tumble out of racks and slam their feet into boots. The passageways fill with the thunder of boots on steel grating. Hatches spin open and clang shut as the crew races to battle stations. On the bridge, the captain kicks open the wing door and raises his binoculars. The wind whips his jacket as he scans the fog bank. The low, buzzing hum of engines drifts over the water. It grows rapidly into a high-pitched whine. The fog swirls and parts. 8 dark, angular silhouettes pierce the cloud layer, skimming just 50 feet above the whitecaps. They are hostile combat drones. The radio crackles with a frantic report from the rear guard. The enemy is closing distance at 200 knots. On the deck of the transport ship, the deck crew sprints toward the tarp-covered shapes. They yank at the heavy straps and tear the canvas away. The gray rectangular tubes of multiple rocket launchers sit mounted on the backs of heavy trucks, chained directly to the deck plates. The crews scramble up the sides of the vehicles, cranking handles and unlocking the firing mechanisms. The drone swarm adjusts course, lining up for a strike on the vulnerable transport. 0605 hours. Flight deck of the logistics vessel. The rain intensifies, transforming the gray steel plating into a treacherous, slick surface. Icy water sheets off the hull as the ship plows through a deep trough. The entire vessel shudders under the weight of the ocean, the steel skeleton groaning against the force of the Irish Sea. On the exposed deck, the wind creates a vacuum effect, sucking the breath from the lungs of the exposed crew. The 8 drones break the cloud ceiling completely. They drop to attack altitude, their black fuselages glistening with moisture. They fly in a tight V formation, wings rocking slightly against the turbulence. The sound of their propulsion systems cuts through the wind like a buzzsaw. On the transport deck, chaos is controlled but frantic. The gunnery sergeant slams his fist against the side of the lead truck. He bellows commands that are instantly snatched away by the gale. Soldiers scramble over the wet metal of the vehicles. They fight gravity and momentum as the ship rolls heavily to port. One private slips, his knee slamming hard into the non-slip grating, but he scrambles back up instantly, ignoring the injury. Hands grasp icy steel levers. They crank the elevation gears of the multiple rocket launchers. The rusted hinges protest with a sharp screech before giving way to the hydraulic power. The boxy launcher pods begin to traverse. They swing slowly at first, then accelerate, hunting for the heat signatures on the horizon. The hydraulic pumps hiss loudly, battling the swaying motion of the ship to maintain a steady lock. The targeting officer watches the monitor in the cab. The green grid flickers. A red diamond snaps onto the lead drone. Then another, then a third. The computer calculates the trajectory. The officer yells the solution into the radio. The launchers jerk upward, correcting their angle. The tubes stare blindly into the fog, waiting for the spark. Outside, the crew rushes to clear the backblast zone. They vault over tie-down chains and slide behind heavy blast deflectors. They press their bodies flat against the cold deck. Hands cover ears, mouths open to equalize pressure. The sergeant looks at the incoming shapes. They are now visible to the naked eye. Ugly mechanical birds of prey. He raises the firing remote. The safety cover flips open with a plastic click. 0608 hours, command bridge, lead destroyer. The only light comes from the amber glow of the fire control consoles. The hum of the ship's ventilation system struggles against the battering of the wind outside. Tension fills the room like pressurized gas. The distance counter on the main tactical screen bleeds red digits, dropping rapidly. 2,000 yards, 1,500 yards. The drone swarm splits, flanking the convoy from both sides. The tactical action officer leans forward. His face washes in red light. He grips the edge of the console until his knuckles turn white. He looks at the captain. The captain nods once. A sharp, singular movement. The officer punches the master arm switch. He grabs the handset. His voice barks into the channel. Batteries released, weapons free, clear to engage. The signal travels instantly to the logistics vessel. On the exposed flight deck, the gunnery sergeant hears the command crackle in his earpiece. It cuts through the roar of the gale. He screams the repetition to his crew, "Fire! Clear the decks!" Soldiers drop into defensive crouches behind the blast shields. They press helmets against the steel plating. The sergeant stands alone by the lead truck. Rain lashes his face. He looks at the launcher pod. The tubes are black holes facing the gray sky. He flips the toggle switch. The ready light blinks green. He exhales sharply. His thumb slams down on the red firing button. The electrical circuit closes. Inside the rocket tubes, igniters spark. The solid rocket fuel catches. Pressure builds instantly inside the chambers. The metal casings groan under the sudden expansion of force. The beast wakes up. 6:10 hours, deck of the logistics vessel. The world narrows down to the dirty glass of the truck windshield and the gray steel of the launcher tubes. The rain pours relentlessly, drumming a chaotic rhythm on the metal plating. The ship pitches deep into a swell, burying the bow in white foam. The first tube erupts. A blinding spear of orange fire slashes through the gloom. The rocket screams out of the chamber, shredding the damp air. The backblast slams into the deck deflector with the force of a physical blow. It scours the steel, stripping paint and instantly vaporizing the standing water into a hissing cloud of superheated steam. The heavy truck bucks violently. The suspension compresses under the massive recoil, metal groaning against metal before snapping back up. The tires bulge and distort under the sudden pressure. The missile accelerates instantly. It leaves a thick, corkscrewing trail of gray smoke that hangs heavy in the humid air. The sound is not just a noise, it is a physical impact. The sonic boom hammers the chests of the crew members huddled behind the shields. Then the second tube fires, then the third. The launch sequence kicks in. The rhythm is fast and brutal. Crack whoosh, crack whoosh. The launcher vibrates, spitting death at the horizon. The bright exhaust flames light up the fog bank, turning the gray morning into a flickering strobe light of amber and red. The rocket climbs. It punches a clean hole through the low-hanging clouds, seeking the heat of the incoming drone engines. The fin stabilizers snap open with a metallic clack. The warhead arms itself. 0611 hours, the logistics vessel. The air above the flight deck transforms into an inferno. The singular cracks of the initial launches merge into one continuous deafening roar. The sound pressure level spikes past the threshold of pain, vibrating the very fillings in the soldier's teeth. The battery unleashes everything. 200 rockets vomit from the tubes in a staggering ripple fire sequence. The launcher trucks convulse on their suspensions, shaking violently against the tie-down chains. The heat from the rocket motors scorches the air, raising the temperature on the deck by 30 degrees in seconds. Paint blisters and peels off the blast shields. The sky is no longer gray. It is a woven grid of white smoke trails and angry orange exhaust plumes. The rockets tear through the fog bank, creating a tunnel of turbulence. They shriek upward, thousands of pounds of high explosives racing at supersonic speeds. The sheer volume of fire creates a wall of steel. The exhaust smoke engulfs the rear of the ship, choking the view. Sparks shower down like molten rain, bouncing off helmets and hissing on the wet deck. The noise hammers against the hull plates, sounding like 1,000 sledgehammers striking at once. The ship lists slightly to starboard from the force of the turn, but the rockets track true. They arc over the water, a massive swarm of metal hornets hunting the incoming drones. The propellant trails twist and knot together, forming a chaotic web that blots out the rising sun. 1,612 hours, airspace above the Irish Sea, 1,000 yards off the starboard bow. The rocket swarm reaches the convergence point. The propellant burns out, leaving the warheads to coast for a split second in the freezing air. The incoming drones rush forward at 300 miles per hour, closing the gap instantly. They fly straight into the kill box. The sky detonates. Hundreds of proximity fuses trigger simultaneously. The air fills with jagged black clouds of high explosive soot. A massive curtain of tungsten shrapnel rips through the atmosphere. It sounds like a thunderclap trapped inside a steel drum. The shockwave slaps the surface of the water, flattening the whitecaps into a smooth, shivering sheet of gray. The two lead drones slam into the wall of metal. There is no evasion. The shrapnel shreds their carbon fiber wings instantly. The fuselages buckle and collapse under the impact of thousands of steel pellets. One drone disintegrates completely. The fuel tank ruptures, turning the machine into a bright, expanding sphere of orange gas. Debris flies outward. Twisted landing gear, shattered sensor optics, and burning chunks of engine housing. The second drone loses its tail section. It spins violently, tumbling end over end. The turbine engine screams as it ingests its own debris. The blades shatter, shooting out the back of the exhaust like grape shot. The crippled machine drops like a stone, smashing into the ocean surface with a towering splash of white water. 0613 hours, the intercept zone, 1 mile out. The sky is a graveyard of smoke and falling debris. Black clouds from the initial detonations hang heavy in the air, creating a jagged obstacle course. The surviving drones scatter. They bank hard, wings vertical, cutting through the thick soot of their destroyed wingmen. 3 of the machines yank their noses up. They attempt a desperate vertical climb to escape the kill zone. Their engines scream at maximum RPM, fighting gravity. They pierce the top of the smoke layer, exposing their dark bellies to the open sky. It is a fatal mistake. The second wave of the rocket barrage arrives. The air around the climbing drones saturates with high explosives. A warhead detonates 10 feet from the third drone. The concussive blast wave crushes the fuselage like a tin can. The avionics fry instantly. The machine goes dead in the air, flips over, and begins a flat spin toward the ocean. The fourth and fifth drones cross paths in a frantic evasion maneuver. A rocket slams directly into the center of the formation. The explosion is blinding. It fuses the 2 machines together in a tangled mess of burning metal and carbon fiber. They fall as a single burning comet. Flaming fuel sprays across the sky in a wide arc. The wreckage trails thick black smoke as it hurtles toward the dark water below. It crashes into a wave trough, extinguishing the fire with a violent hiss of steam. 0614 hours, logistics vessel flight deck. The thick smoke from the rocket barrage hangs over the water like a bruised curtain. The air reeks of sulfur and burnt kerosene. The deck crews stand amidst the spent casings, chests heaving, eyes scanning the gray haze. The silence is brief and deceptive. A high-pitched scream tears through the cloud layer. The 3 surviving drones burst through the smoke. They do not turn back. They pitch their noses down in a steep, aggressive angle. Gravity and engine thrust combine to push them past their structural limits. They accelerate toward the ship, closing the distance at 300 knots. The tactical officer on the bridge shouts the warning, "Inbound, brace for impact!" On the catwalks, the gunners spin their heavy machine guns. They slam their shoulders into the stocks. The barrels swing wildly, trying to track the blurring shapes. The lead drone targets the bridge. It weaves left, then right, dodging the initial tracers. The second drone locks onto the rocket trucks on the deck. The third aims low, skimming the waves, hunting the waterline. The ship's automated defense turret spins to life. The rotary cannon whirs with a mechanical growl. A stream of white-hot tracers erupts from the barrel. The line of fire sweeps across the sky like a garden hose, chasing the diving machines. The lead drone takes a glancing hit. A 20mm round shears off its left wingtip. It shudders violently but maintains its dive. The pilot, an AI algorithm, ignores the damage. It corrects the flight path. The camera lens in its nose cone fixes steadily on the glass windows of the bridge. Soldiers on the deck raise their assault rifles. They fire blindly into the air. Brass casings rain down on the steel grating. The roar of the drone engines drowns out the gunfire. They are seconds from impact. 0615 hours, starboard rail, logistics vessel. The world moves in slow motion. The incoming drone engines scream at a pitch that vibrates the rib cages of the crew. The gray hull of the lead attacker fills the sky, blotting out the horizon. It is less than 200 yards away. The air smells of ozone and imminent impact. The ship's close-in defense system engages. The rotary cannon mounted on the bow emits a continuous, deafening buzzsaw roar. A solid stream of tungsten rounds lashes out like a whip. It walks the fire directly into the path of the bridge-hunting drone. The rounds impact the drone's nose cone. The machine does not just break, it vaporizes. The kinetic energy of the 20mm shells shreds the airframe instantly. The drone detonates in midair, 50 yards from the bridge windows. A massive fireball rolls over the ship's superstructure. The shockwave slams against the reinforced glass of the bridge, cracking the outer pane with a loud snap. The second drone dives for the flight deck. A sailor on the catwalk swings a heavy machine gun. He holds the trigger down. The heavy rounds chew through the drone's starboard wing. The wing shears off. The drone rolls violently to the right. It misses the rocket trucks by feet. It slams into the heavy steel crane tower mid-ship. Crash. The impact shakes the entire vessel. Metal screams as it tears. The drone explodes against the crane, showering the deck with burning fuel and jagged shrapnel. A piece of the landing gear hurtles across the deck and smashes into a floodlight, shattering it into sparking glass. The third drone stays low, skimming the whitecaps, aiming for the waterline. A short-range interceptor missile streaks from the launcher on the destroyer escort nearby. It covers the gap in a blink. The missile intercepts the drone 20 feet off the water. The explosion is a thunderous concussion. It displaces tons of water, sending a massive geyser of spray and steam shooting up past the flight deck. The shockwave hits the hull of the logistics vessel like a hammer blow. Men on the deck are lifted off their feet and hurled onto the wet steel. 0620 hours, logistics vessel flight deck. The roar of the guns dies out, leaving a ringing silence that feels heavier than the noise. The air is thick with acrid gray smoke and the smell of burnt explosive propellant. Small fires crackle on the deck plating where debris landed. The ship rolls gently in the swell, the motion causing spent brass casings to roll back and forth with a metallic clatter. "Damage control! Move! Move!" The shout cuts through the haze. Teams of sailors in flash gear sprint across the wet steel. They drag heavy fire hoses. They reach the smoldering wreckage at the base of the crane tower. The nozzle opens. A jet of white chemical foam blasts onto the burning metal. The fire hisses violently, sending up a plume of thick white steam that mixes with the fog. Nearby, the gunnery crew pulls themselves up from the deck. They check their bodies for shrapnel. One soldier wipes black soot from his face, revealing white skin underneath. He coughs, spitting gray phlegm onto the grating. Over the side of the ship, the sea churns. Oil slicks and floating pieces of carbon fiber bob in the waves. The wreckage of the drone fleet sinks slowly into the freezing depths of the Irish Sea. On the horizon, the lead destroyer flashes a signal lamp. Sector clear. The convoy does not stop. The engines rumble deep within the hull, pushing the vessel forward. The bow cuts through the debris field, leaving the destruction behind in the wake. The fog bank rolls in again, swallowing the ships, hiding them once more in the gray ghost of the morning.